Hello, Mr. Bond. Today, I'm going to make the pizzas that I showed you how to make the dough for yesterday real quick. And I try to do everything quick. So let's get started. I'll show you how I do it. So right now I've got all my stuff set to go. I got my sauce, cheese. I've got some tins of anchovy here. I've got some mushrooms, some onions, some basil. I've got my dough. Oh no. Sorry you guys, technical difficulties. Cheap camera mount, right? Okay, here we go. And I've got the dough that I made yesterday. You can see that dough is doubled in size overnight in the fridge. So I'm going to take my bench scraper, divide that dough, and scoop it out. It's going to be a little bit sticky and tacky. And this is just regular old all-purpose flour here. It's not the flour that I used to make that dough. And I'm going to drop it face down in that flour. Make sure it's well coated. Turn it over. And the whole dough ball is now coated in flour. Let's get this out of the way. So how I stretch a dough, how a lot of people I think stretch a dough, at least that have worked in pizza places before, is you start by pressing down around the edge of the dough, making yourself a perimeter. So I'm going around in a circle, leaving a hump for the crust and a hump in the center. And then I'm just going to kind of deflate that center. You can see how air is coming up and poking through that middle. And just kind of bring that to level, and the round edge is a little bit higher. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it, but I'm going to leave a gap in my hand around that dough, and then shift it over and lightly tug it around the entire outside of that dough. I'm still never pressing on the outside edge of that dough. Just kind of coaxing it to stretch. So once I have that stretched, you can see those little air bubbles there, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to start slapping it back and forth. Let's see if I can pick it up just a little bit. I'm going to start slapping it back and forth. And then putting my hands underneath the dough, I can spin it around a few times, and it's really stretching that dough out into the shape of a pizza. Now, in the places that I've worked, we would have used an oiled screen and a deck oven to cook these on. But since I don't have that, I've got a good old pizza pan, and I'm going to put just a little bit of vegetable oil on it. You could use olive oil and rub it around the entire surface of that pan. Then I'm going to pick that dough back up, and I'm kind of spinning it around in a circle. You really can't see that good. When I do the next one, I'll show that to you. And I'm going to set it on that tray. You can see that it goes well over the edge of the tray. Now I'm going to lift those edges up, and I'm going to shake that pizza, and I'm going to let that edge drop onto the edge of the pizza pan. And it'll give me a nice round shape. You see how I've got a nice crease there? Well, if I keep that shaking process going up and doing it towards the center, eventually it'll kind of constrict, and go back in towards the center of the dough a little bit. And now I've got my pizza. You should go through and dock the edge of this with a fork. Poke holes around this fork. I'm not going to do that because I'm being lazy, and I'm just going to poke any little bubble that I see. I'll rip it open. How's that? Rip it open. Now this sauce that I have, you can use any tomato sauce you want. You find your own best tomato sauce. This is a can of San Marzano tomatoes. They're like 3 or 4 times the price of a normal can of tomatoes. And I took a blender and ran it through a blender. Then I added a little bit of basil, a little bit of oregano, some powdered garlic, salt, a little bit of black pepper. Most of the time, at least in my house, if you wanted to add any kind of pepper, it was red crushed pepper. And black pepper, at least for Italian things, you used very sparingly. Now that I've got that sauce down, I'm going to put some cheese in. I like to use a whole milk mozzarella cheese. This is not that. This is a part skim. But I do have some whole milk mozzarella that I've already grated that I'm going to use in the plain cheese pizza, just because I think if you're going to have just a plain cheese pizza, might as well use, good cheese. So this stuff isn't quite as good as that. This is just a part skim mozzarella cheese. And I'm going to just kind of very carefully cover the entire surface of that pizza. I don't want to push down so hard on that cheese that I'm like dragging it through the sauce and making tracks with, underneath the cheese through the sauce, so that I'm bunching sauce up. Like that's where my mind's at. It's try to spread it out as thin as I can, or not as thin, as even as I can, without digging down into that layer of sauce that I just made. So now that I've got that there, this pizza is going to have anchovy, mushroom, and a little bit of onion. And I've got 2 tins, these little tiny tins of anchovy. And really, that's a little too much. I'd say a tin and a half for this size pizza, which you can tell it's a big pizza, is plenty. But since I don't want to be wasteful, I'll just put it all on there, and it'll be just a little bit overpowering, but I like anchovy anyway. And in my neck of the woods, they don't serve anchovy on pizza around here. So this is the only way I'm going to get it. Okay. My family were big anchovy eaters. In fact, my grandmother would make a potato donut every year around the holiday time, stuffed full of anchovy, and it was just about the best thing in the world, in my opinion, to eat. I waited for those donuts. Okay, just spreading that around as even as I can get it, and then we're going to pitch those tins away. And now, let's set that up there a little bit, and we'll get some mushroom. Well, got some mushroom already cut. I'm going to put that mushroom down. Hopefully I cut enough. I don't know. I like a lot of mushroom. I know you like mushroom. I was just thinking of that. I'm addressing you in a YouTube video, and maybe I should change the name of this channel to Cooking with Robert. I think that would be a blast. And I don't think people have done that, specifically had a little bit of a cooking experience with somebody specific. And I thought that's kind of cool. I got some onion. Just cut those into little thin little shreddy shreds. I'm going to drop those all over. And I'm going to say that pizza's good to go. And let's be real. A real Italian or a real pizza connoisseur, whatever, whatever you want to call them, would completely think that was too much crap to put on a pizza. And I would agree. But this is my pizza. And that's what I'm doing to my pizza. So that's good to go in. And next up, I'm just going to do a cheese pizza with that whole milk mozzarella. I'm going to do the same thing. Only this pizza pan here that I'm using was my grandmother's. And it's older than me. And I'm old. So it doesn't look so hot. Just like me. What did I do with my bench scraper? Okay, now we're going to go in with pizza dough number 2. Do the same thing. Drop it in that flour, face down, flip it over, get that thing entirely covered in flour, and do that same thing. Press around the outside, back up through the middle. Now I'm going to go around the outside. And now I'm going to start slapping her out. Don't look at that. That's a mess. Trying not to show you that ugly pizza pan, but it's got about, 50, 60 years of oil that have been cooked onto it, and then baked onto it, and then more oil put on it, and there's just layer after layer of that. Okay, so that's pizzas there. A little more of that San Marzano tomato sauce. I mention I put a little bit of tomato paste in there, and I stirred it into those pureed San Marzano tomatoes until I got the consistency I liked. It thickened it up a little bit. And for a cheese pizza, a lot, some people would disagree, but I prefer a little more sauce. Just because it's just only two things in there, Star of the show is the sauce and the bread, really. Cheese is kind of a background player. So if you got that dough right and that sauce right, you got it. And this is the whole milk mozzarella that I got. And don't be afraid to get that cheese up on the crust. It does pretty things. It burns little strands of darker color onto the crust. It adds flavor up there. Some people really are kind of anal about keeping that clean crust, but it doesn't bug me a bit. And I think that's okay. I've got a little bit of fresh basil, and I'm just going to put some basil on top of there. Not too much. In fact, that's probably too much. Let me take what's there and just kind of spread it around a little better. And that's it. Ready to go. Now I'm going to put it in the oven. We'll show you what that looks like. Okay. There is the first pizza. And I'm going to put it down on the bottom shelf in the oven. And then we'll run up here, grab the cheese. Honestly, I should have done, I'm going to do that backwards. I'm going to put the mushroom pizza on the top because the mushroom has so much moisture in it, and that coil up on the top will encourage the moisture to kind of evaporate off the top of that pizza. But they're going in. That oven is at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to cook it for about 10 minutes. We'll put a timer on there and start it. There you go. We'll be back in 10 minutes to start playing pizza. Okay, 5 minutes in. Take a quick peek. Everything's starting to puff up. And I'm going to just kind of sneak in there and spin everything around. Just to make sure it's all cooking even. And then we'll come back and visit in about 5-7 more minutes. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. We're gonna go down here and take a look at that. I've been spinning these things around. They're still a few minutes away from being done, but this mushroom pizza, I'm just gonna take it, slide it right off the tray, straight onto that rack. If I had a stone, a pizza stone, I wouldn't do that, but now I'm gonna get myself a nice crispy bottom, I hope. And I'll do that to that other pizza as well, but because it's so close to that bottom heat element, I'm going to put that off. It's all like a balance, a juggling act to figure out your oven and figure out what the best way is to cook a pizza. Okay, all done. So there's the mushroom and the anchovy and onion. And I did have a little blowout on it. Right there, you can see a little dip in that pizza. First time that's happened at home. Like, when I worked in restaurants, that happened, you know, every once in a while. But first time that's happened here, but the cheese and basil pizza looks darn good. And there it is. I cooked this one a little lighter. Maybe I should have cooked it a little longer. A lot of people like it a little longer. You can see underneath how dark that is on the bottom, right? And in fact, how's that? Now you can really see how good and brown that is on the bottom. And I'll go ahead and cut it with my little junky 95-cent pizza cutter. And I'm cutting it right on a cardboard box, you know. Everybody's been using Amazon so much. You should have cardboard box everywhere. Everyone should have cardboard boxes everywhere. And why not use them up? I mean, if you did a lot of shipping yourself, you know, then I could see keeping them. But instead of putting them straight into the recycling, I cut them open, turn them inside out. And, boy, I should have probably not got the 95-cent pizza cutter. Opted for the $5 one, because this is a pain in the neck. I mean, it's working, but boy. Not very good leverage, for sure. And it's wobbly, too. So, word of wisdom. Don't go for the 95-cent junky pizza cutter. Spend the extra money, go to the restaurant supply store, and get the better pizza cutter. So there's that. I cut it into 12 slices. It's a great big pizza, so 12 slices was a good it's quite a big slice anyway. I mean, if I would have left it and cut it into eighths, you would have got a big giant slice, you know. But there it is. Pizza. So, I hope you give it a shot. And guarantee you it's probably one of the best pizza dough recipes you'll find. It's all really about playing with that oven and finding your right temperatures for your oven and your times. And better than any pizza you get in a restaurant, almost. I mean, if you're lucky, you got a super place around your house, you know, you're lucky. But otherwise, this way to do it. Take care, you guys.